Sound 99.
Wilma Rudolph, I wonder if we could begin by having you tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in Clarksville, Tennessee. It's a very small southern town, about 45 miles north of Nashville, Tennessee. Had a wonderful childhood there. My mother still lives there. I came from a very large family in Clarksville, Tennessee, but there's not very many of us left there now.
As a youngster, you contracted scarlet fever and double pneumonia and lost the use of one of your legs.
Right, well, in the research of trying to find out the end result, there was really a series of childhood illnesses, and they began, of course, with scarlet fever and pneumonia, and the end result was really polio. That was the last finding, and I wore braces until I was about 9 years old.
I think it's really remarkable to read about that because so much went into your recovery from that. Your mother, some of your siblings, the whole therapeutic aspect of it. Your mother on her day off would take you to Nashville to the Meharry Medical Center. Had to massage your leg regularly. Could you talk about that?
Well, I think when we want to talk about a fun aspect of it, I can think about, you know, the wonderful sisters and brothers that I had that each time a different one went with my mother or my aunt that took me to the hospital so that they in turn could learn how to give me the exercises and the massages also. So it really became a household ritual. Everybody in the house sort of pitched in and made sure that I got everything that I needed. I think the wonderful thing about those trips was the 45-mile bus ride when you're young and excited about just making a trip. So I sort of took it in stride from the standpoint of the illness. I think the thing that was disturbing about it more than anything else was being teased by the kids that I grew up with.
When you were going through all of this, did you really feel you were going to recover? Were you worried that this would be something you'd have to carry with you the rest of your life?
Well, being 9, I really never thought about it. My household was so positive. Not so much the doctors, but I mean my mother, she always told me that one day that I'd walk without braces, and I had begun to believe it. I believed it very early. My father was just the opposite. He was a lot more protective. He didn't really want me to take the brace off that often, so I didn't really get to take it off. But as I always state, there was a good form of cheating for me because I used to sneak and take it off, and they would help me and they would massage me, and I did that for about 1.5 years before the doctors actually knew that I was taking the brace off. But no, I never once thought that I would not walk because I was surrounded by people that were positive about it.
When you were a youngster, had you thought much about athletics, you know, as a very young child, or was this something that sort of came to you in school?
I knew absolutely nothing about sport. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that young girls were allowed to participate in the world of athletics. It was a foreign word to me. I think I discovered girls in athletics about 13 years old, and my sister Yvonne, that was 2 years older than I, was playing basketball. And my first discovery was really basketball.
You were an outstanding high school basketball player. Is it Burt High School?
Burt High School. I really thought that I was the greatest basketball player, but when you come down to reality, I wasn't. My best girlfriend was far better than I. And I lost her very early in an automobile accident, but when we were very young, about juniors in high school. But she was terrific, and I was probably second best in basketball in my small high school in Clarksville, Tennessee.
How did you make the transition from basketball to running track?
Well, it wasn't so tough. It wasn't tough because the whole aspect of athletics was new. First of all, it was a fun thing. It was where we had fun more so than we knew anything about the discipline. So while you're having the fun, you continue to have fun. And I was actually discovered for track and field on the basketball court because my referee of all of my high school games was the world famous track coach Edward Temple at Tennessee State. So he discovered me very young. I didn't have any experience, but I took the challenge of trying to beat my best girlfriend that was playing basketball. And I think that was the incentive that I needed. And I went out there, and it was a fun thing. I discovered I could beat her. And then after I discovered I could beat her, I discovered I could beat all the girls in my school. And then from there, I was on the state level. I discovered I could beat all the girls on the state level. And I discovered it was a home for me. I had developed a great love for something, and I felt free. It was the individual aspect of it from the standpoint of my own single performance, of being involved, and it was up to me to work to be the best. And I think that I like that better than the team concept, because you have a lot of help there. I was just learning those different concepts of sport very young. I was very young when I went to Tennessee State. I was 13 years old when I first went to the university, and I ran with the college team, but they ran underneath the name of Tennessee State University Club so that I could qualify to run with them.
In other words, you would not have been able to run for the regular university team? I'm not clear.
Right. Well, from the standpoint of your amateur status, you have to be with your high school or a club. So he would go as a club during the summer months so that he could take all the young girls in and train us, and we would spend the entire summer there. And if we were good enough, he would take us to the outdoor nationals, and that was the biggest event in women's sports, especially track and field.
Did Coach Temple ever tell you why he thought you'd be a good runner?
Not in so many words, but he wasn't one that spoke very often about the whys with his athletes, but I gathered that it was because of my height. I was always 6 feet. I was so thin, and I will whisper this on your camera, 89 pounds when he first met me. He felt that I had potential. I was very quick. When I played basketball, I was everywhere, and I could play any position that the coach put me in.
How did you feel about going away from home and going off to a university? Nashville, of course, a pretty good-sized city. You were from a country town. Was that a big...
I loved it. I loved it. I mean, you would have thought that I was going to Europe. I was only going 45 miles away from home. I think every young girl that really never has the chance to go out for summer camp, because we couldn't, there was no such thing as summer camp for young black girls in my hometown. If you traveled with your family. If you were lucky enough to make a basketball team, that was the only other exposure that you had a chance to get. So I was the happiest young lady that you would ever meet. I think the only disappointing thing was that I wanted to appear as a college student at 13 years old.
You grew up in an environment that many people today completely unfamiliar with. You went to a segregated high school. Tennessee State, at the time you went there, was an all-black university. Did that have any effect on you? Did you think very much about that when you were coming along? Was that an issue at all? We look back on it and make it an issue. But
it wasn't an issue. It was a way of life. It was accepted. I didn't know anything else. It was wonderful to be able to be away from home. I mean, you were away, and you were with the I would say the grandest of the greatest people. You met people from all over small Tennessee State. I mean, we had students from New York City, all around the country. So, I mean, it was really diversified from the standpoint that you could find people to talk to, find people to share experiences with. I always had something to share when I went back to my small hometown. So no, I didn't think of it.
Tell me about a time where you had your first experience away from home.
I couldn't have had but one thought, and that was being able to obtain the education.
cut.
Sound 100.
We'll go back into the question we were talking about. I said that you grew up in an environment and in a time that many people today are not familiar with. It's surprising, but some Americans don't know that there was a segregated environment in America at one time. You went to a segregated high school. You went to college during a time when many colleges and universities were segregated. Did that mean very much to you? Were you affected at all by it, or was it just something that you accepted as the way things were?
Oh, of course I accepted it because there was no such thing, and you accept what is. All of my life I knew I was going to go to a university. I didn't know how, but in the back of my mind, I always tried to work toward education, coming from this very large family and knowing that out of 22 brothers and sisters that I was the first child to have a chance to go to school. And the grandest aspect was that I could trade off my athletic ability for the scholarship, and that was how I thought of it. And but I thought it was a wonderful experience. You know, even with my children, I have 4. I have 2, one that have gone behind me. My oldest daughter, she went to Tennessee State University, and of course, the first daughter always wants to follow mommy. Now, my second daughter is at Indiana University at Purdue, and the experiences have been different for both of them, but they share the concept of how important she felt it was that she attended a black university, and my youngest daughter feeling that it wasn't as important that she attend a black university because she's always been in a segregated situation. So it's interesting when you compare the two from the standpoint of their own philosophies and their experiences. But I would say for me, it was the grandest thing that had ever happened.
When you were running in high school, you of course could only compete against other black high schools, I would assume.
Yes. The thing that made it so great with our programs in the South was that we had extensive programs in basketball and track. They were all black, but they were really good programs. I mean, we traveled around the state of Tennessee. We went out of the state of Tennessee. I even traveled as far as Tuskegee, Alabama to their relays, all around, just high school, gaining experiences. The segregated situation was great for us because we had some of the top kids in the world from everywhere. Georgia produced the best, and I was always in Georgia. But it was just the opposite when I started with Tennessee State University, because that led to the exposure of being in an integrated situation for the first time in my life.
Did that jar you a little bit? Were you a little bit, what was it like suddenly?
Well,
Yeah, go on. What was it like suddenly? Now you're at Tennessee State University, and that seems like the other side of a coin, that you're now not just competing against black athletes, but athletes perhaps from all around the world.
It didn't bother me from the standpoint of, I think I sort of always defied the traditional segregated aspect of Tennessee. I think I always did things I wasn't supposed to do. If there was a sign that said you're supposed to go to the opposite door, I went in the door that you're not supposed to go in. I think it was always a challenge. Things changed an awful lot for me after the Olympics, but before that, I would not think that I was not supposed to do this because I was a black girl. I would do it anyway. I think I was just lucky that I never suffered any consequences from defying orders. When I met the kids for the first time in an integrated situation from the standpoint of track and field, it was as smooth as it was with me going in those doors I was not supposed to go into. I met wonderful people. I think the biggest problem was not the kids that were participating, but it was their parents that had brought them to participate.
In 1956, you went to Melbourne, Australia. A lot of people remember you from 1960 in
Right.
Rome, but you, as a 16-year-old, went to the Olympics in Australia in 1956. Tell us something about that.
Oh my goodness. I was frightened, of course, because I had not flown that far away from home. But I was not frightened enough to stay home. I always wanted to gain experiences, as many educational experiences as I could get very young. I think the grandest aspect was making that Olympic team and then going to Hawaii. And then from there, for the first time in my life, landing in an all-black country, which was the Fuji Islands. It was a wonderful experience. I'd never seen anything like that. You know, to see black people run their own government and to see all black policemen, all black everything. The only thing that I couldn't take was the weather. The weather was a lot different. Being born in Tennessee, I suffered the consequences because I was able to run in any kind of situation from the standpoint of the weather. And then from there to Australia. Now that was quite different. The language was different. The people were different. I had seen whites all of my life, but I had not seen whites that were that color. So of course, I stared as much as they did because they were as foreign to me as I was to them. They would ask me if I was an American, and I would say yes. And a lot of times they would want to know why the different colors of American blacks, and that I didn't look like all of the blacks. At that time, I had been running for a long time, and I was in the sun a lot, so that means that I had red hair. And I wasn't used to the idea of having red hair either, but you know, you explain the history and you go back, and they're all sharing experiences. I think if I had an adjustment to make, it would have been the weather, not the people. They were always grand. They didn't know if I was a champion or not. But in '56, I mean, I couldn't walk down the streets. I was signing autographs all the time, and that was new for me. And I think everybody sort of wants to live in that dream world once. And for me, being a first time, of course, I didn't think there'd be anything ever in my career that would top that. But of course, there was.
You won a bronze medal, I think, 100 yards. 100
4
meters.
by 100 meter relay.
Relay.
Yes.
Do you remember that race?
Oh, yes. I remember that race vividly, as if it happened yesterday, because it was the first time that I was in the realm of winning something. I had been eliminated very early, and I was so upset because I was just getting my feet wet. I mean, I was only at the tip of the iceberg, and here I was thinking, my God, I'm going to be one of the world's greatest, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to win something. And I didn't win a thing. I was eliminated in the second rounds. So I was lucky enough to be one of the 4 fastest that the United States still had produced at that time. So I was on that relay team. And the wonderful person that I shared that with, that I will always remember, her name was May Fags. She was really my protege. She was the person that I loved the most in the world of athletics, because when I met her at Tennessee State University, she shared the Olympic experience with me. She had gone to the Olympics. She knew what it meant. She told me all the things that she saw in Helsinki, Finland, and I was excited. We were like Mutt and Jeff. She was very tiny and I was 6 feet, but she was my role model. I wanted to be just like her, and she taught me an awful lot, and she was on that relay team with me. And from the standpoint of teaching me at a very early age, and me being able to go to the Olympics with her and win something, was really a grand moment in my career.
Who won the race?
The Australians won the race. Of course, I don't know who was second. You always remember first place. And of course you remember third place because the United States of America won a bronze medal.
Were you very disappointed?
Oh no, I was excited. All those kids that wouldn't play with me, I had something to show when I got back. All the ones that teased me when I wore a brace, I used to think, my goodness, now I have something to show for my own accomplishment. When I get back, all those kids that wouldn't play with me are going to be very sorry. Of course, I forgot that as quickly as I returned to my school, but all of those years, that was the motivation behind me, was because of those leg braces.
1960, of course, is a very significant year for you in your career. You go to Rome, you win 3 gold medals, which must have just been an extraordinary feeling. Can you describe some of that for us?
I mean, you're always frightened. There's never a moment that you're not frightened. I think the thing that took most of the fright away was my coach was the Olympic coach that year, my coach from Tennessee State University, and that was history. And with him being with me, I never had to leave him from the moment I started with him at 13 years old. So that was my first plus. And I think I still didn't believe it, although I believed it inside. That moment of being there at the starting line.
Okay, you're out. Come back.
Flag champions, April 11th, 1985, Wilma Rudolph. Sound roll 33, camera roll 67, sound 101.
1960, the Rome Olympics. Talk to us about that.
Fascinating. My coach, Ed Temple at Tennessee State, that I had been with since I was 13 years old, was named the United States coach for the women's track and field team. So of course we rejoiced, because it's not very often that you have a chance to have your coach with you. That is something that is so very rare and so very special. So he was there, and I had never ran a race any place without him sitting in the stands. And I didn't always see him, but feeling his presence was the most important aspect in walking out in front of all of those people. And he would always stay with me until the very moment that I had to go through the tunnel to get into the stadium. And then he would run to this one special seat. And by the time I came underneath the tunnel into the stadium, I could look and see him. And that was all I needed. I mean, that was the motivation that I needed. I think the first one, you have to be mentally tough. I mean, sprinters have to be mentally tough all of the time, because it's something that is not planned. You can work a lifetime, and it might never happen. But being mentally tough means that you're willing to go back again and again and again and again until you accomplish it. And knowing that he was there on that first one, being mentally tough for me, sort of eased it a little bit by the time I got over to the starting block.
You mentioned earlier that you're always afraid. There's always a fear involved in going. What is it exactly you're afraid of? Of losing, of performing badly, of falling down, maybe?
Well, I think every sprinter that goes to that starting line, that moment is afraid of losing. That is always there. But the fear that is in the pit of the stomach, it is more of a nervous reaction than anything else. If it is not there for me, that is a day that I might as well not run, because everything is off. There's no adrenaline. When it's there, I know that I'm on target, that I'm listening, that I have that keen sense of looking for that, listening for that sound. And I always had the worst start in the history of any sprinter because of my size. And I was the tallest sprinter that ever came through the United States. And everything was off. So by the time we really got it down pat, I never mastered it. It always mastered me. And if you watch any of my film clips, my first 30 to 45 yards, I was never in the race. So I was always happy they didn't have 30 and 40-yard races. But the farther I ran, the faster I became. And I could always accelerate in the end. And that was the key to the successes of Wilma Rudolph. Never the start. And I always smile when I say that, because they always talk from the standpoint of a champion. And I think my philosophy has always been a true champion is never able to master, but he or she is always willing to continue to try to master it. And that is what separates the champion from the other athlete.
You had an extraordinary achievement in the Rome Olympics in 1960 in the relay race. Your teammates were teammates from Tennessee State, I believe.
Yes, it was the first time in the history of the United States of America, and it's still now the only time, that 4 young girls from one university represent the United States of America. And I had started with Martha Hudson, that started that relay team. We both had started with Ed Temple when we were 13 years old. Barbara Jones and Lucinda Williams were already there. So we came underneath them. We were sort of the neophytes, I would say, of the track team. So we had worked together for years, and never in all of the same positions that you saw on television, but Coach Temple taught every young girl to be able to pass a baton and to receive it. And that day he had put together that combination. We won the national championship with that same combination. And Lucinda and I had been passing for years the baton. I always take the blame because for the first time I was lackadaisical. I didn't take off as fast as I should have. My mind was not totally on what I was doing. And she missed my hand at first. We had a sort of a little boggle there. And it sort of slowed us down a couple seconds, which meant that I had to catch up. But then I was a better runner from behind than I was being out in front. So I enjoyed the idea of being able to catch up.
It was an extraordinary race because you just did, by maybe half a stride, beat, I think it was the West Germans?
West Germans.
At the wire. You had to be a little bit, I mean, after that boggled baton exchange, you had to be a little concerned.
I think the concern was getting the baton, because you just can't go any place without it. I never had a concern about whether I would catch her or not. You know, even if it's a half of a centimeter, once you catch her, you know, you have the race. I had that same feeling when I retired. In the last race that I ran, it was from behind, and I decided that day that, you know, this is history, and you should retire.
Tell us about the last race.
It was Palo Alto, California, Stanford University, Russia versus the United States, and I had decided I was running well, but the heart wasn't there anymore. I mean, what do you do when you win all of it? To keep yourself motivated, you have to be a little bit hungry to be there and to stay on top. I think the most difficult thing once you get to the top is staying there. The climb is the easiest portion. Staying there is the most difficult thing that you've ever had to accomplish. And this particular day, we were running a relay. We were behind when we started off. And you always think on a stagger start, and you know on a stagger start that, okay, she's going to catch her in the turn, and by the time the baton is passed, we're going to be even. Well, that didn't happen. And then when they passed it the next time, I said, well, by the time they get to the next person, we will be even, or we will be one step ahead. It didn't happen. And by the time it got to me, I saw that we were behind. And I made myself a promise that day. I said, if you catch the Russian, it's history, retire. If you do not catch the Russian, you will have to run another 4 years for the Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. I caught the Russian. I retired. It became history. It was the fastest single race that I'd ever ran in the history of my career. And to get a standing ovation in my own country, outdoors, which I'd never had before, I think was the grandest moment in my career. I retired that day, and I have never regretted it.
What do you say to youngsters who may speak to you about their own aspirations in athletics, or youngsters that may come to you and say, I want to be a champion? What do I have to do? What do I need?
I say to them, believe it. The most important aspect about anything that one wants to be is that they have to believe it first. And as long as they believe it and start working toward it, then they can walk away with whatever happens and feel good about whatever the accomplishment is. I also let them know that the most important aspect of being in the world of athletics is being able to trade it for a sound, solid education. The key is education. And when you build that foundation together, you have it made, because you take that discipline and that determination that comes from the world of sport and you apply it to the world of education. It works for young people, and that is what we advocate at the Wilma Rudolph Foundation.
Let's just,
I miss it. I don't know why.
Sound 102.
Wilma Rudolph, tell us about your early years. Tell us about growing up.
I had wonderful years of growing up. Wonderful years with a very large family of 22 children, and I'm the 20th of those 22 children. A wonderful world because they protected me and they showed me a lot of love. A lot of determination came out of that for me. I grew up a lot different from most kids. I grew up with a series of childhood illnesses. The beginning for me was scarlet fever, pneumonia, and the end result was polio. And I wore braces until I was 9 years old. I think the most difficult moments growing up was being teased by my peers and not being accepted to play and do all the things that one wants to do growing up. But then when you have a large family like that, you're protected. I think I regretted missing my first 2 years of school because I had a homebound teacher, so I wasn't free to be out like the average child. I was overly protected by my father.
I think we got it.
This video raises questions, and I need for you to be extremely honest in the comments when answering them. And just so you know, I have 2 questions. Number 1, who would you like for me to do a video on next? And number 2, what are your thoughts about this video? Please share them in the comments. Please be honest when answering these questions. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.